Welcome to the Subbud Podcast, your entry into the land of no easy answers, as we journey through the vagaries of the mind, attempting to unravel the mysteries of why our brains brain.
Hey.
Hey there.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Subbud Podcast. I am Aaron Stewart, and this is the illustrious Kristen Ramore.
Oh, I thank you.
Oh, my goodness.
It's very nice to be here today.
We'll do it. So very interesting. We're talking about talking to animals today, so we're going to do things a little differently with our voices, because, you know, you can't talk very loudly to animals.
Animals don't like it when
They
you
get
use
all
your normal voice.
skittish and stuff.
But before we get into this episode, make sure you hit that subscribe button right down below. Subscribe. Oh, I can't keep that up.
The ASMR talking to fish episode. It'll be great.
Yeah, perfect.
Can only talk to fish in very quiet voices. Yeah, so this is an article that we apparently, so this AI revolution that we've been going through, a couple of you may have heard of this chat GPT thing that you can now use to apparently talk to other humans.
Humans.
Yes. We should have brought that up in our dating episode about the chat GPT and using that to do text to people.
Oh, yeah, because that's a very real thing. Anyway, stay tuned for an episode on that.
But yeah, so now that we've cracked the code of talking to humans, we are going to apparently...
we're very good at doing that.
So good. So amazingly just perfect at it. We've mastered communication with a Q.
There is never any misinterpretation when talking to other human beings or, everyone says exactly what they mean all the time.
So since we have mastered that, we are now looking into the realm of talking to animals, which I find just absolutely fascinating. This, right? Like I'm very interested to see what that bird is screaming outside my window at 6 a.m. Because I'm pretty sure it's just, hey baby, hey baby, hey baby, hey baby. It's just some mating call, I'm sure. So it's.
Well, we don't know until, if only, I mean, he could be telling you the secret of life. For all we know, they're screaming it, be like, you fucking idiot humans, this is what you gotta do. And they're just raging. We're not listening. We don't know. Fine. The world I live in is a much more exciting world.
I don't know why mating isn't exciting. I don't know what you've been doing wrong all this time, but it's pretty exciting for me.
Don't get me started on that, Aaron. That's a whole rabbit hole I don't want to go down.
Anyways,
animals.
Animals. We're talking to animals.
So, developing,
apparently they're looking to use AI. They're saying that we're very close to being able to actually crack the code of, because I mean, if you think about it, like we have, I guess, more than 10 words or so that we use, you know.
You have 10?
I know,
Ooh,
right?
Wow.
I had to like write 2 books worth of words and their definitions just to be able to collect 10 words. Anyway, that I can use, no less. But the the animal vocabulary is probably much smaller, which I hope which you'd think would make it easier.
Well, that's an assumption.
I suppose.
That you're making. Maybe it could be far more complex than ours.
They may have 1,000 different words for tree.
Just starting to figure that out now. Yeah. Right, and it's kind of interesting to be, if we do figure that out, because so many people have, for centuries, worked on the assumption that animals are just stupid and don't have consciousness, and they don't think apart from basic behaviors.
Because that has always just like irked and fascinated me. The idea that you could look at another animal and like, just as an example, poke it with a stick and not recognize that animal felt you poke that with the, right? Like they used to think that it was just this instinctive, that they didn't actually feel pain. And that, and I go back to the church, unfortunately, with this idea that God gave the animals to us to use as we would want to use. However, we want to choose to just fuck the animals over, go for it, because God gave us the permission to do whatever we want.
I don't know where the whole notion came from, but it's
literally in the Bible.
Genesis
says that God gave us the animals.
Well, the dominion over, but the whole cultural, like they don't feel any pain, they can't think, they're not capable of emotion, like
lesser
we don't
beasts.
know. Lesser, yeah. Right, and I don't know if that's, I mean, it could definitely be the church. It could just be a very human thing of us wanting to be the greatest things that ever walked on
Well,
the face
I
of the
really
earth.
feel
But
like other cultures have had much more respect for
yeah,
animals
yeah.
than right, like just this wholesale destruction of everything they, habituate in or can
Yeah.
live, or right, like every, yeah.
So it's going to be really fascinating then if we do find out that this whole time they've actually maybe had complex language and interactions, and they
Oh,
maybe
that's
can
crazy.
share ideas and ooh,
Work
crazy
together
things.
as a group to accomplish a goal or something. I mean, oh,
God, when do you ever see that happen in nature? No, they're just
well,
stupid
definitely not with
animals.
humans.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The pinnacle of evolution. We can't quite figure that one out, though.
Definitely not the humans doing that. Nope. And this will be the part that interests me is what we will learn from what they're right. Like how
Yeah.
does that affect, like, is animal language structured different? Like I assume every animal has their own kind of structure for, like, the birds have their own means of using adjectives, right? I guess descriptive terms for,
Yeah.
right, like you can't just say tree, you have to say that tree. Right? Like, do they actually have a means of differentiating between the different trees and the different birds and the different animals roaming around? Like, oh, watch out for that fucking squirrel. They'll steal your, right?
What I'm more interested in is like why they're developing that sort of research, right? Like what are they hoping to gain from it? Is it just like anthropological of trying to figure out, if they do have speech patterns? The one part of this article, which we'll link to in the description, that caught me was at the end where they'd mentioned, the application of this. And the example they gave was so that if a ship is going through the ocean, it can tell the whale in its own language to get the fuck out of the way. I'm paraphrasing, obviously. That was not how it was
Oh
written.
no, you
But,
can't talk nice to a whale, right? Like you
but you
can't
know
be
what I
like,
mean? I
hey,
was like,
please, whaley, could you please not? You got to be like, Gail, whale, get out of the fucking way, man.
but it was just the whole like, what? Why would that be the application of it? Like, we just need to communicate with them to do what the fuck we want them to do because we're really sick and tired of these animals not listening to us humans. Like.
We know what's best. Get out of the fucking way.
So it was just kind of a weird, that was the example used. And I don't know whether that was the researchers
As
or the
opposed
person
to
that wrote
using
it
it-
or whatever, but.
As opposed to using it the other way, where if a whale was coming, the whale could tell us to get out of the fucking way, and you could just
Well, it's my
deviate from your
fucking
course a
ocean.
little,
Like,
right?
get out of
Like-
here. I was here first. Like,
Yeah, really.
it's just kind of a weird, so again, why is this being developed? And I'm sure it's going to have different applications depending on, who's doing the researching and who's getting this data involved. And some people just genuinely would probably use it to hopefully create a better world if if we can understand that there are now many creatures apart from us that have consciousness, that have social interactions and, what would that mean for humanity, right? Like that would, I think, change a lot of how we behave on this planet.
You would hope.
You'd hope. And I mean, chime in and let us know what you think. If you suddenly knew that the birds outside were not only had their own kind of consciousness and language, but they felt things, they registered you, they have their own community, they're essentially the same as we are. Would that change how you go about your daily life? Would you think differently about knocking down that bird nest?
Or eating that chicken,
Eating the chicken? Yeah.
having that hamburger, right? Like if you knew that they were sentient beings with their own hopes and dreams, would you be cool with, bashing their brains in and then eating their flesh? This has been kind of part of where, like, my journey has taken me towards, vegetarianism, right? At least, not a practicing, but a trying to lean to,
Yeah.
right? Where it's just about being more mindful of this shit as far as I'm concerned, right? The idea that you just go about your life without any thought towards the carnage and the destruction you're leaving in your path, without ever once looking behind you and going, oh shit, there's a lot of bones back there. Right? And that you don't think that there's any way you might be, this idea that we have this heaven and hell, but that doesn't mean you're accountable for all the animals you ate. That seems right. Like, why is that not part of the equation for whether you go to hell? Oh,
Well,
but
I mean, it might be.
I treated my dog so nicely while eating all of these other animals, right? Like, that just seems an interesting little, and it's one of those, like, I grew up on the farm where, I mean, I looked in many cows' eyes searching for some sign of intelligence, and I just could not find one. Right? Like, just like moo. you know. But the idea that
Maybe that
that
is
makes
them being
them,
intelligent.
but that's the idea that that makes them lesser than, that gives us permission to
Yeah.
slaughter and right? Like you watch some of the videos of these slaughterhouses and you're just like, how does the person put themselves into that situation and just like, just cut that compassion, cut that empathy out of their brain and just be like,
Yeah.
no, they don't feel anything. Boom.
Well, I mean, it depends on the type of place you're running, but like the big commercial ones that are, yeah, just absolutely horrific. Because there are good ones out there, right? I have visited farms that
Yeah.
are, humane in how they go about. They treat the animals really well. And there's this one particular farm that I visited, and it was actually just quite beautiful. Before they slaughtered the cows, like they were treated well their entire life, but they had this kind of room, and it was like someone would sit with them and massage the cow and play music and sing to it, and it was a very respectful, like, okay, we're going to give you like at least a really good last night and you're going to feel loved. And, it's because to maintain the circle of life, because animals, if it turns out they do have a consciousness, well, they hunt and kill as well, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Absolutely.
it's about just taking that extra, we become so detached from it, which is, I think, what you brought up that's important is no one really thinks anymore when you buy those eggs from the supermarket or that steak from the supermarket, right? It's really not, in most people's minds, a question of where that's coming from.
Well, and they've taken great pains to remove you from that equation.
Yeah.
Right, so that you don't have to think about that. You don't have to think about it. You just go to the store, you
just
go you just buy that stuff.
Steak's
It's
just
already made
steak.
up. Exactly. You just throw it on there and you're done. You don't even have to think about it. Right, like you don't have to be there for the slaughtering. You don't have to be there to watch the blood. You don't have to be there to see the light go out. And you don't even have to think about that anymore. So why would you?
But I'm a big believer in that everything does kind of carry energy within it, right? So things that have been killed in this really horrific way where it's not respected, I mean, like you're now putting that into your body. And everything that you put into your body becomes a part of you, right? That's just fact, right? You absorb it, it now becomes part of your cells and your own. It's so if you're consciously putting things in that have been treated that badly, that carry that level of energy, what is that saying about you? Like that's now how you're treating yourself, and you're kind of carrying on maybe some sort of a karmic energy in that way. I mean, I don't know. It just seems like something once you really think about it and you go, oh, I don't know. And if you use that analogy, do I want to make this part of me? Right? This cow that suffered, that never saw the light of day, that was, tortured. That's me now.
Mm.
Yeah,
and I was reading an article. Apparently, China has just put up a like 20-story like pig slaughtering facility.
Oh, apartments for pigs.
Literally, where there's no people in there.
Yeah.
But they can process like millions and millions of pigs.
Yeah.
A year, and they'll never see the light of day. They'll never they're cramped in this
Yeah.
Close, temperature controlled, sure.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm sure they say they've taken great pains to make it very right, but that's bare minimum.
Yeah.
And just the idea that, I mean, I get that we have to feed people and all, but I mean, I also look at Chinese traditional medicine in a lot of ways has decimated so many of our natural animal, populations that I'm really hard pressed to find the benefit in this. If it meant that you as a person, and I'm just going to make this personal here, if it meant that you as a person got to live 2 more years, and because of that you killed rhinos and elephants and sharks and had to eat all of these exotic animals in order for you to survive, was it worth it? Now that all these animals are disappearing from the planet, now that the populations are endangered, now that we're facing extinction of 1 million different species, they're saying over the next 10 years will disappear, never to be seen again. The idea that doesn't give you some sort of pause and make you think about your eating habits, the way that we look at animals around us, the idea that you're not going out of your way to go find some nature to be a part of this before it fucking disappears, to grasp some of this thing before, the idea that we're going to be able to talk to animals and that's going to remove some of the magic of animals, right? That now suddenly they're just going to be these, we can talk to it, so whatever. right? And yeah, it's telling us how it doesn't want us to hurt it and all, but whatever, right? God told us we need to eat. It's
Well, I think it's, to play devil's advocate, I think people everywhere can be really shitty, right? So I don't think it's I don't think it's
not
culturally
me.
it's not culturally specific. I mean, like
No,
for
no, no.
for
That's
us looking at different cultures and we'd be like, "Oh, I
I
can't
didn't mean to
believe they would eat that." And
single out, but
yeah,
yeah.
I mean, just again, like we all kind of do it, right? And
Mm.
people would look at our culture of like, "I can't believe they fucking would do this and disrespect this animal," right? So it's just
It
more
was
like
just an example of a thing that I
yeah,
had
I just
read where
needed to throw that in there because I
yeah.
don't think it's, we are all very culpable of being shitty.
Well, this is
Um,
again something that I've had to just come to terms with myself, right? Like growing up on the farm and
yeah,
just having that laissez-faire, right? Like, whatever, they're just gonna die.
yeah. Well,
Instead
there
of
there
looking
is
at
like it's just having the respect for it.
yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean? Because it is we are kind of built to eat meat. Not entirely. We can live on veggies as well, but we can live off both. And again, going back to animals, there are animals that are pure carnivores that eat meat. So there is always going to be that's part of nature that things will hunt and kill in order to eat,
hmm.
right? So I think saying doing away with that altogether isn't necessarily the answer either, but
No,
having a respect for the cycle of how it works. And that's what we've done is we've removed ourselves from it because in the animal kingdom it would be, you have to go and hunt your own fucking meat and then kill it and then, so you're going to have a completely different level of what that means versus now when we don't have to think about it. So now that we've had overconsumptive culture when it comes to meat eating because we don't think about it, whereas
hmm.
if you did live on the farm and you were slaughtering your own, you're going to think a lot differently. You're going to have a lot more respect for it. One, you're going to treat it better because going back to what I was saying earlier about that energy you carry, it's yours. You're growing this thing because it's going to sustain you. It's automatically kind of part of your family.
Hmm.
And, might sound a little fucked up, but it kind of is because it will become a part of your family. And, so therefore you're going to treat it better. You're going to want to have the best, so it's just a different level of understanding and respect. And that side of it, I don't have a problem with. It's the not thinking about it, not caring. This idea of the steak just showed up. So it's just steak. Why the fuck do I care? I don't care. Don't steaks just grow on trees? You just pick them and fry them up?
Yeah, and I mean, you look at stuff like foie gras,
Well, yeah.
right? Which, if anybody understands anything about that, I just go,
Well, I mean, and that's a whole next level. That is
yeah,
something that resulted from intentionally torturing an animal
yeah,
to make it taste better. But like whoever
so
came up with that in
tasty.
the first place is really fucked in the head. But then to continue supporting it
Yeah,
is even more fucked up.
yeah,
And again, like a lot of people might not actually know, but that's what it is. You're literally force feeding geese to the point where they're like you have to bypass their like vomit mechanism and it's terrible. Imagine someone sticking a tube down your throat and just forcing you until your insides
yeah,
it's
until
horrible.
their body literally pretty much ruptures, and that makes the liver really tasty.
Yeah.
Mm. And just the idea that if we were doing that to your kid,
Yeah.
right? Oh boy, there'd be some sort of uproar, hey? But because it's this goose, I mean, who gives a fuck, right?
Yeah.
And just that level of disconnect, I and I get like for the longest time I was ignorant of and mostly stupid, and not much has changed. but I like to think that my growth doesn't make me less. Like the idea that you're just going to hold on to this idea, wow, that's just what I do, right? Without ever once giving it thought, without ever once allowing yourself the opportunity to grow past or beyond or into or
Yeah.
does us just such a disservice,
Well, and that's it, right? Is this is the way it is. I don't
Mm,
need to think about it because this is what everyone else is doing. You know, is maybe it works for you and you're comfortable with it, but just because that's what everyone else is doing doesn't necessarily mean it's right. And again, to go back to the topic of the episode, once we find out if these animals can talk and we can communicate and get something, how are you going to feel going and picking out that steak in the grocery store that came from this horrible slaughterhouse where they were all injected and prodded and like will that change things for you?
Tell us in the comments.
Tell us.
And I'm just gonna. I think this will be a good end for this thing. I was sitting and thinking, like, if the animals, when we allow them to speak, tell us how much they care about you, would that make you care about them?
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, they might just be like, "Fuck you guys, plotting the takeover."
which realistically, at this
As they
point,
probably should.
I wouldn't fucking blame them for that.
You'd be like, yeah.
Like, I would
so.
just be like, no, the penguins want to take over. Maybe we should let them. I mean,
be like that Simpsons episode where the dolphins just take over Springfield and banish everyone to the sea. Like, yeah, okay, we kind of deserve that.
You know, again, I go back to this. We keep talking about AI taking over, and everybody's, oh no, it's going to ruin us. And I keep going, but maybe we need to have some parts of us ruined, right? Like the idea that AI wouldn't take the worst parts of us and give us an opportunity to get rid of them in the means of making us better. I just go, right? Like the idea that AI is going to take the best parts of us and cut those out to keep the worst of us is just...
Well, it kind of go against its programming.
Well, that's kind of the whole point of this thing, right? The idea that AI is going to make us worse, or that, you know, the idea that, you know, we'll become, you know, integrated with in some means, whether it's expanding our memory, allowing us to connect to internet or whatever, blah, 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 right? There's lots of transhumanist ways that we could kind of integrate this thing into us that are going to make us better. Right? I don't want to have to fucking remember phone numbers anymore. Why can't I just have a button in my head that I just go... Right?
Yeah, it looks great.
Look, I'm dialing a number.
So excited for that.
Yeah. But I mean, have it, you know, programmed into your, right? Have a little display that just pops up here, and you can, right? Like, there's all sorts of ways that we could make this into something that doesn't need to be scary for people. I get, you know, there's this dystopian view that, you know, Skynet will destroy us all.
It's also unknown, and right, that's the scary thing.
Just like talking to animals.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the point we need to probably bring up when talking to animals is that, you know, we are the ones that are creating the AI. We're the ones writing the algorithms and the programs. So therefore, we are interpreting it through our own.
That is a great point. Right? The idea that we're actually going to be hearing the voice of the animals without our inherent bias built into it, right?
Well, like, that's it. So it's, whenever that, you know, chicken starts speaking, is that actually what it's saying, or have we just encoded this and to interpret it based off of what we maybe want to hear?
Wait, the chickens have been speaking in Farsi this whole time? Who knew? Right? And that's right, the idea that we'll translate it into English.
Yeah.
Right? And they've been speaking in German this whole time, and we'll, you know, mismatch things that way.
Lose in translation, like, or, you know, we're the ones creating the translation to begin with, so we're the ones that are assigning the meaning to...
That's a fucking great
whatever it
thing,
is, right? So, I mean, can we ever be 100% sure when we do have this technology come out that this is actually what's happening?
I look forward to 1,000 years from now when we've just decided that no, the beavers were right all along. we you know, when they started saying this stuff to us, we were like, "Fuck you, beavers," and then they were like, "No, this is really gonna like it's really right." And then the beaver gods came down, and we were faced with the inevitable conclusion that they were right all along. On that note, now that the beaver god has descended and we all now bow to the beaver god, thank you, beaver god, for this podcast you have delivered to us today.
I mean, don't we really all just bow to the almighty beaver anyway?
Lord knows I do. Anyway.
The subtle art of nuance here at the Subvert Podcast.
All hail the all-powerful beaver! Hey, Thomas Beaverus! Beaverus, yeah, there we go. Dominus Beaverus, perfect.
All right, we're putting that on a t-shirt.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being part of. Maybe we'll communicate better once we figure out that the animals wanted to talk to us all along and just wanted to tell us to stop fucking killing them. Hey,
yeah, hey. I mean, if they could speak, what do you think they're saying? That's probably right up there.
Probably don't murder me. Yeah.
Please stop. Just stop. Anyway, let us know what you think.
Please. Be great.
Because we don't know what we think.
And then hit that subscribe button. Hit that like. Follow us on Facebook and the Twitter, which we might get to at some point. You never know. You'll start. Someday.
We're there.
Someday.
Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Have the best one.